the table, and the human. The Kalthari military mess hall was not a place of comfort. It was a steel cathedral, built for order and intimidation. Rows of soldiers sat in formation at metal tables, their meals served in nutrient trays that smelled faintly of iron and ozone. The air was always heavy with discipline, broken only by the occasional bark of a commander or the metallic clatter of armor shifting against the benches. And yet today, the hall buzzed with an unusual tension. At the far end of the chamber sat Lieutenant Marave, the only human in the entire facility. She was an outsider, a curiosity to some, an insult to others. To the Kalthari officers, she was a challenge to their dominance, an unwelcome reminder that the galaxy had underestimated Earth. Mara ate slowly, deliberately. Her posture was straight, her hands steady. She didn't slouch, didn't avert her eyes. Every movement was precise, measured. She knew they were watching her. She could feel their stares like heat across her back. "She doesn't even flinch," one soldier whispered, watching her chew. "She thinks she's one of us," another sneered. "She's just flesh and bone." The general humors her because he finds it amusing. The whispers grew, rippling through the hall. Then, like the sound of a war drum, boots struck the floor. Heavy, deliberate steps. An officer was approaching. Commander Vorik, towering, broad-shouldered, armored in black steel that shimmered with faint red lines of energy. His tusked jaw clenched in a sneer as he approached Mara's table. His reputation was brutal. He was known for cruelty, for breaking soldiers to prove points, for snapping bones to remind his subordinates of their place. "Human," Vorik spat, his voice carrying across the chamber. The soldiers fell silent instantly, every gaze fixed on Mara and the looming officer. Mara looked up slowly, her calm gaze locking on his. She didn't speak. Vorik leaned down, his voice dripping venom. "I've heard the stories. The general. The arm. You think you're special. But here," he slammed a hand down on the metal table, the sound like thunder. "You are nothing. You eat at my table. You breathe my air. And you forget your place." Mara's expression didn't change. She set down her fork, folded her hands, and regarded him with quiet curiosity. Vorik's lip curled. "Say something, human." "I don't need to," Mara said evenly. The silence after her words was suffocating. The soldiers stared in disbelief. She had spoken without trembling, without hesitation. Vorik's rage snapped. In a single motion, he grabbed the edge of the table and ripped it upward. With a roar, he swung it down with all his strength, smashing it onto Mara's head. The impact rang like a gong through the hall. Metal crumpled. The table split across her skull, snapping in two pieces, shards scattering across the floor. Gasps erupted from the soldiers. Some winced, certain the human's body would slump lifelessly. But Mara did not fall. The broken halves of the table slid from her shoulders, clattering to the floor. She sat exactly as before, eyes unblinking, posture straight, hair falling across her face but otherwise unchanged. She slowly brushed the dust from her lap, then raised her head. Her eyes met Vorik's. Calm, cold, unyielding. The hall was silent. Vorik's sneer faltered, just slightly. He had expected blood, collapse, fear. But there was nothing. No bruise. No sign of pain. Just stillness. "Is that it?" Mara asked softly. The silence shattered. Soldiers sucked in breath, some whispering frantically, others frozen in disbelief. Vorik's rage erupted into violence. With a roar, he lunged forward, reaching for Mara's throat. His massive hand, claws gleaming, swung down like a guillotine. But Mara was faster. Her chair scraped back with a screech of metal as she rose in one fluid motion. Her hand shot up, catching his wrist mid-swing. With a twist of her hips and a sharp pull, she redirected his momentum. His body stumbled forward, off balance. And then, with terrifying precision, Mara struck. Her elbow slammed into his throat, her hand clamped the back of his neck, and with a brutal twist. Snap. The sound cracked through the hall like lightning. Vorok's body went limp, collapsing at her feet. His eyes bulged wide, the disbelief frozen on his face. A commander, dead in a single, efficient move. The hall erupted. Soldiers shouted, some leaping to their feet, others backing away in shock. The air was thick with panic, disbelief, awe. Mara stood over the fallen officer, her chest rising and falling calmly. She looked down at his body, then at the broken table beside him. Slowly, deliberately, she bent down, lifted the remains of the table, and propped it upright against the wall. Then, with one fluid motion, she dragged Vorok's lifeless form and placed him on it. The soldiers stared, frozen, as Mara stepped back. The officer's corpse lay displayed across the broken table like a grotesque banner, his neck bent at an unnatural angle. Mara turned to the silent hall. Her voice was calm, but it carried across every corner of the chamber. "Let this remind you," she said. "You cannot break me. Not with words. Not with tables. Not with force. You may outnumber me. You may surround me. But I will not fall." Her eyes scanned the room. Every soldier avoided her gaze. Some trembled. Some whispered. She survived the table. She broke his neck like it was nothing. She's human, gods, she's human. One soldier, braver than the rest, finally shouted, "You'll pay for this." His voice cracked halfway, betraying his fear. Mara turned her gaze on him. He faltered instantly, his words dying in his throat. The weight of her calm presence pressed on him like gravity. She stepped closer, her voice lowering to something cold and dangerous. "Do you think I care about payment? Do you think I came here to survive you?" She leaned forward, her eyes like steel. "I came here to remind you that humans endure. And when you try to break us," she glanced back at Vorok's displayed body, "we break you instead." The soldier fell silent, his bravado collapsing into fear. From the corner of the room, a high-ranking officer finally spoke, his voice unsteady. This is treason. She killed a commander." Mara turned to him, her expression unreadable. "No. He killed himself when he underestimated me. And so will you, if you forget what I am." The words settled like a curse over the hall. No one spoke again. No one moved. Mara sat back down at her place, calmly retrieving her fork. She picked up her tray, brushing a bit of dust from the edge, and resumed eating as if nothing had happened. The silence in the hall was absolute, broken only by the quiet scrape of her fork against the tray. The broken table, with the officer's corpse sprawled across it, loomed like a monument, a warning carved not in stone, but in flesh and steel. That night, the whispers spread through the barracks like wildfire. Every soldier repeated the story, embellishing or stripping it down, but always keeping the core truth intact. The human had been struck with a table. She had survived without flinching. And then, she had broken a commander's neck with terrifying ease. And she had used the broken table as his display. The legend of Mara Vey grew. She was no longer merely the human. She was something else. Something they didn't yet have a word for. The galaxy would learn. The table was just the beginning. The table wasn't just a display. The officer's body still twitched on the fractured metal table. His neck hung at an unnatural angle, his eyes glassy with shock. Silence spread like wildfire across the arena, eating up every whisper, every jeer, every drumbeat of the soldiers' boots against stone. A single human had done this. And she wasn't finished. Mara's breathing was steady, her knuckles raw, blood slick across her skin, but none of it was hers. She leaned over the broken officer's corpse, grabbed the mangled slab of alloy that once served as a mess table, and lifted it one-handed. The weight would have taken 5 of their soldiers to move. For her, rage made it light. "Do you see this?" she shouted, her voice booming through the alien hall. She slammed the table upright, planting it into the ground like a war banner, the officer's limp body hanging from it like a grotesque display. A ripple of shock and revulsion shuddered through the ranks of the alien soldiers. Their commander, the same one who had mocked her people as fragile, stepped back, his claws tapping nervously against his scabbard. He hadn't expected resistance. He hadn't expected a spectacle. And certainly not this. The cracks in their discipline. The commander barked an order, his voice cracking like thunder across the chamber. Form lines. She is only flesh. Break her, now. The soldiers hesitated. Some obeyed, moving stiffly into formation, but their eyes betrayed them. Fear gleamed in their gaze. Mara turned, her chest heaving as adrenaline surged through her veins. She could smell the fear, the way their nostrils flared, their pupils widened. Only flesh, she mocked, her lips curling into a dangerous smile. She grabbed the lifeless alien officer by his broken neck and hurled him at the advancing line. The corpse struck the front ranks like a battering ram, knocking several soldiers sprawling. Then let's see what flesh can do. The soldiers roared, more out of panic than courage, and surged forward. Mara met them head-on. The first one swung a blade, sleek and humming with alien energy. Mara ducked low, the blade singing over her head, and drove her shoulder into the soldier's ribs. Bone cracked audibly. He wheezed once, then collapsed. Another lunged. She caught his wrist mid-strike, twisted until the joint shattered like glass, and slammed his own weapon into his chest. The blade cut deep, leaving him screaming as he fell. Blood slicked the floor. Armor clattered. The air was a storm of sound, snarls, roars, the metallic crash of weapons, and the steady rhythm of Mara's fists breaking bodies. A human storm. She wasn't just fighting. She was performing. Every strike, every counter, every broken body was a message carved into the minds of the onlookers. This is what humanity is. A soldier twice her size lunged with both arms outstretched. Mara ducked under him, snatched the edge of the broken table, and swung it in a wide arc. The metal groaned, whistling through the air, before slamming into the soldier's side. He crumpled with a wet crack. She spun, the table in her hands now a weapon, an extension of her fury. Each swing toppled another alien, scattering them like dry leaves in a storm. Sparks flew as the edge smashed against armor, tearing through with brutal efficiency. The commander watched, frozen. Impossible, he muttered. Breaking the commander. The soldiers faltered, hesitation spreading like infection. Some stepped back, others outright dropped their weapons. None wanted to be the next corpse dangling from a table. Mara noticed. She wiped blood from her brow with the back of her hand and locked eyes on the commander. "You called me weak," she said, her voice carrying across the battlefield like a bell tolling for the dead. "You called humans weak. I'm going to end this with you." The commander bared his fangs, but Mara could smell the fear rolling off him. Still, pride forced his claws to his sword hilt. He drew it with a hiss, the blade shimmering with plasma. "Come, then, Deathworlder," he spat. Mara dropped the table with a crash. Gladly. They circled each other, predator against predator. The commander lunged, blade flashing, but Mara sidestepped, her movements quick, almost too quick for his eyes to follow. She slammed her elbow into his jaw, and bone gave way with a crack. He staggered back, dazed, his sword wobbling in his grip. He swung wildly, rage overcoming precision. Mara caught his wrist mid-strike, twisted, bones splintered, and slammed her knee into his chest. His breath left him in a guttural roar. And then she finished it. She grabbed his head with both hands and wrenched. The commander's scream cut short as his spine snapped. His body dropped like a puppet with severed strings. Silence followed. The army's choice. For a long moment, nothing moved. The soldiers stood frozen, eyes locked on their fallen commander's lifeless body at Mara's feet. Mara straightened, her chest heaving, blood dripping from her fists. She looked over the ranks of alien soldiers, her gaze hard enough to cut steel. "You see this?" she shouted, gesturing to the corpses, the shattered table, the broken commander. "This is what happens when you mistake humanity's silence for weakness." She grabbed the broken table again, planted it upright with both commanders' bodies hanging from it. The officer, the commander, a gruesome warning. "Remember this," she said. "Remember who we are." The soldiers looked at one another, then, almost as one, they dropped to their knees. Not out of respect. Out of survival. Out of fear. Mara turned and walked away, leaving the corpses on display. Her steps echoed in the hollow silence, a sound that would haunt every soldier in that hall for the rest of their lives. Epilogue, the legend begins. Later, word spread through the alien ranks like wildfire. Stories of the human woman who broke a commander's neck with her bare hands, who used a shattered table as a war banner, who turned an entire battalion into witnesses of their own fragility. Some whispered she was no mere soldier, but a weapon born of Earth's brutal crucible. Others claimed she wasn't human at all, but a monster wearing flesh. But among humans, her name spread differently. Mara became a symbol, a warning, a legend. And across the galaxy, whenever an alien officer mocked humanity's strength, someone would whisper back, "Remember the table."